so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is T.J. Inman, and we're presented by Heartwork Brewing, and we'll have a quick 30-second ad from Heartwork.
Heartwork Brewing, we are fiercely independent. From our variety of craft beers to our artisan Neapolitan-style pizzas, we put our heart into our work. We offer a full menu of draft beers, from our award-winning lagers to IPAs, sours, even our house-made seltzer. Our Northside Taproom has a variety of events and spaces for groups of all sizes. Heartwork is proud to be a locally and veteran-owned business here in Bloomington, just a stone's throw from Memorial Stadium and Assembly Hall at 1703 North College Avenue. Visit heartworkbrewing.com for hours and event info. At Heartwork.
All right, that's from our friends over at Heartwork Brewing. TJ, welcome in. Indiana was a victorious 27-14 winner, although some people don't feel as good about it as others. Alex and Nate went over it on the after the dust settles last night pretty well. Do you have any thoughts to add on to last week's game?
I know it was a frustrating game just in the sense of how close they were to making it a total rout. And it felt like, really it felt this way because it's reality, just a little bit off. And that is not something that we're accustomed to now. I think you do have to be careful about comparing this year's team against Old Dominion versus, our favorite memories from last year, like beating the pants off Nebraska or playing great against whoever the other opponents, that are in your head. It's the first week. And Indiana did not look like an 11-1 team in the FIU game last year. They looked like an improved team for sure, but they didn't look like a team that, oh, wow, we're going to go 11-1. There was nobody thinking that after that first week against Florida International. It was, hey, we look better. I think we can go to a bowl game. Awesome. And it built from there, right? It's not a finished product at this point in time. Certainly some things to potentially be concerned about. I think that you could potentially be concerned about the defense giving up explosive runs. That could potentially be a concern. It happened twice against Old Dominion, and it happened against Notre Dame to end the season, right? With Jeremiah Love. That could either be a trend that's developing, or it could be a couple of aberrations. We'll see. I think you could be concerned potentially about execution inside of the opponent's 10-yard line on goal-to-go situations.
Yep.
That could be something that develops into a trend that cost you in close games. Because if you leave points on the board like IU did on Saturday against a really good team, you're going to lose. Now, those could also just be aberrations that could be due to a lack of execution with run block fits in short yardage situations. It could be stubbornness from the play calling to try and prove a point, to get it on film of, hey, here's what we have been telling you to work on. and it hasn't happened, and this is the result. And here's why we need to clean it up. Could be that. It could be just not wanting to tip your hand at all before that Illinois game, doing anything unique in the red zone. So it's just something that we're going to have to continue to look at. There are potential storylines, potential things to be concerned about, but nothing, in my opinion, to panic about at this point in time. I had fun watching them play. I thought IU played hard. I thought there was a lot to like. I thought there were some really good performances. The secondary played great, in my opinion. They did a good job forcing turnovers. Anytime Old Dominion made a mistake in their passing game, IU secondary took advantage of it and made them pay. I thought that the running backs were a ton of fun to watch, all three of them. I know Lee Beebe had a fumble, but overall, really good day for the running backs. I think that they look like a really lively group. I think the offensive line did a pretty good job of keeping Fernando Mendoza clean and providing a lot of lanes for those running backs, again, until they got inside the 10. Kickoffs from Brandon Frankie, very good. That was something we talked about. And then punt return. That was something that we had questions about. And Jonathan Brady had a huge punt return for a touchdown and looked good a couple other instances as well on punt return. So a lot of positives and some potential things to watch that, if they don't get cleaned up here in the next couple of weeks, will be red flags.
Yeah, a lot of the comments are similar from last year. I think the stakes are a little higher, and people are concerned about dropping in the rankings. I think IU maybe drops a spot or stays stagnant wherever they are. To me, it really doesn't matter. You look at South Carolina last year, because it's a common opponent with ODU, and they won by 4, struggled, and people were begging for them, a 3-loss team, to get into the playoff.
The Old Dominion game never mentioned in that conversation at all that it was close. Never.
Correct. And this game was not as close as that game. They didn't need, 2 fumbles inside the 10-yard line. Look, if Old Dominion fumbled 2 times inside the 10-yard line, I don't know if IU's scoring anyway. The way Saturday went, but it's a long season in the sense of you have 11 more data points to collect. Are there, I would call them yellow flags right now? Sure. Stuff you're going to keep an eye on. But overall, you came out with a win against an opponent that I was nervous about in an opener that I'm always nervous about openers. During a week when a lot of teams, especially in the Big Ten, did not look as good as people had hoped or people wanted to. So moving on to Kennesaw State, we'll see where IU comes out in the rankings. I believe they're coming out today. Since we're recording on Tuesday, it's a holiday weekend. They should come out at some point today, but right now they're still at 20 and 19 in the AP and coaches poll. But let's move on to Kennesaw State. Old friend Dexter Williams comes back to town at quarterback. Kennesaw State opened the season with a really tough 10-9 loss at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is not good. Their quarterback play is atrocious, and it took a missed field goal and a missed extra point for Wake Forest to walk out of there with a win. Kennesaw State, this is their third year as an FBS team, coming up from FCS. You saw them play in person last year. It seems like they couldn't be much worse. They did start to turn it around a little bit last year with the win over Liberty. But again, it's an offense that didn't put up points against, we'll see what Wake Forest's defense is, but it is a defense that stuffed a Power 4 offense, albeit a bad Power 4 offense. But this is, in all intents and purposes, should be a name your score game for IU. It is another chance to take a shot at a running quarterback. While Dexter Williams does not look as explosive as he was at IU following that catastrophic leg injury. If those missed reads happen again, yeah, those yellow flags become red flags. But if you watch the 2 touchdown plays, TJ, Hosea Wheeler literally runs by the quarterback with the ball to tackle the running back, and then Kellen Wyatt takes the dive on the other one, and Colton Joseph, as soon as he plants his foot, he was gone. I mean, on that first touchdown, even in the press box, the radio booth, he was at the other 40-yard line before you realized the running back didn't have the ball. So, kudos to him. Apparently their backup quarterback is faster, according to people, but it's hard to imagine a guy faster than that on the football field. So a lot of good things, but Kennesaw State comes in. TJ, what are your thoughts on Kennesaw State?
Right. Yep. Did see them play in person last year against Jacksonville State. It was not pretty. Jacksonville State ran all over them. Now, that's a Rich Rodriguez rushing attack that did exactly what Rich Rodriguez rushing attacks like to do. And Wake Forest has Robbie Ashford starting at quarterback. That's not going to work out very well most of the time. At least that has been the case throughout his collegiate career so far. I do think it is fair to say, based on one game, Kennesaw State has significantly upgraded on the defensive line. They looked much bigger, much quicker, to me, against Wake Forest than they did last season. They do have a new coach, first-year head coach. Unsurprisingly, they let their coach go last season towards the end of the year because it was a disaster on both sides of the ball. I think Wake Forest is going to contend with a couple others, Stanford mainly, for worst power conference team in the country. This
Throw
year,
Northwestern
they
in there
are,
too.
I'm sorry?
Throw Northwestern in that conversation too.
That's a good point. Northwestern as well. But still, it is a power conference team that you would expect to be able to at least kind of successfully run the ball. And Kennesaw gave them nothing. Only 3 carries of more than 10 yards, less than 3 yards per carry. And that wasn't for a lack of trying. Wake Forest ran the ball a lot, just unsuccessfully. 47 rushing attempts for a total net of 130. 21 yards lost, 151 gained. So really good day from Kennesaw State's defensive front and linebackers. Their secondary was not really tested because Robbie Ashford can't throw the ball with much accuracy at all. So didn't really see that. I would anticipate, though, despite Kennesaw State's improvement, Indiana should be able to do to Kennesaw State what they did to Old Dominion's defensive front, which is open up big holes for those running backs and be able to have a really successful day running the ball. The question to watch is going to be, can they execute inside of the red zone the same way that they do driving into that area? And then beyond that, can the passing game get some explosive vertical plays going? We don't really know what Kennesaw State's secondary has, but IU should have the advantage against it. You'd want to see Fernando Mendoza look more comfortable in the pocket. It did look like he was a quarterback used to being pressured every time he drops back, which is what he dealt with at Cal. And it looked like he was not used to having a clean pocket to operate from. the term happy feet was thrown around. He just looked unsettled, nervous, whatever term you want to use. So we'll see if this second game provides some comfort for him. And I also expect Mike Shanahan to have a lot to work with towards, okay, here's where you were good. Here's where you were not comfortable. Let's work on making that not comfortable stuff work. I would hope that Indiana would be able to, as you said, set the score, but Kennesaw State does look improved, at least on defense. Now, on the other side of the ball, you mentioned Dexter Williams. Very poor day passing for him. That's not a surprise. I mean, we kind of know who he is. He is capable of making good plays with his legs, and I thought he made good decisions against Wake Forest. They played a pretty clean game offensively. Didn't really do much, but they didn't hurt themselves either. It was special teams miscues that cost them that game. And then a general lack of explosiveness. Really only one receiver that you're worried about, and that's Binyard. He had over 100 yards. The bulk of their passing yardage went to him. So I would expect Indiana to aim to take him away by putting Pons on him whenever possible. And then for Williams, you're really looking, let's keep him in the pocket and force him to try to beat us as a passer. It's really the same strategy you would use against Colton Joseph. You said it, Williams, not as explosive as Colton Joseph. Very few quarterbacks are going to be. So you just want to work on this week of staying focused as a defense and not letting those missed run assignments cost you big plays. Outside of those two runs, IU's defense was awesome against Old Dominion.
Yep.
You make those, say, 15-yard runs instead of 75 plus, and Old Dominion has like 120 yards or something. Now, I understand you can't play that way. Those plays count, obviously, but I think on the whole, you're saying, all right, look at all this good. If we can just limit those two defensive miscues and be better on assignment football with those two plays, look how great we can be as a defense. And that's what you're looking to hammer down this week.
Yeah, and it wasn't like the structure of the defense is off and they were just picking on it, like some defenses in the past. It was literally your defensive lineman let the quarterback ran by the quarterback with the ball to tackle the running back.
They got fooled.
Yeah, they were in the right position to make the play. They made the wrong play. And that to me is fixable. That's, you go look on tape and go, oh yeah, that's fixable. You don't have to change the defense. You don't have to say, oh, we have to go rebuild the structure of the defense. It's use your eyes, see the ball, and tackle the guy with the ball. Maybe you need to simplify it, or maybe run scout team a little bit better on those option plays and work on hiding the ball. I think Colton Joseph did an excellent job of hiding the ball on those reads as well, because I mean he fooled the fans in the stands. He fooled the press in the press box, and he fooled the announcers a couple of times too on those. So I don't. You can't take those plays away, but I do think it's a fixable issue, and it's nothing to absolutely melt down about. The only real concern I have coming out of this game is safety depth with Bryson Bonds going down with a knee injury for the year. I do believe Lou Moore will win his court case, but again, it's in the hands of a third party, so who knows what happens. And then Byron Baldwin.
On Lou Moore, just to clarify for our listeners and for myself, he is cleared to play this week, and after that, what is our timeline?
I think the 10th is when his next hearing is. It was 14 days from the 27th. So that would be the 10th of September. And then they'll make a ruling on whether to extend the TRO or whether to make an injunction or whether to, I think the NCAA just wants to dismiss. And I know people say they've got crappy lawyers, but even a crappy lawyer with a good argument can win. What you need is a crappy argument, which I think the NCAA has with a decent lawyer. Even a decent lawyer or good lawyer cannot win on a crappy argument. So we'll see. But it has gone from kind of a concern to, okay, we got to see what Byron Baldwin's injury is. He's listed as day-to-day, and maybe you move some things around. Alex talked about it on the After the Dust podcast. But just a game day overview, TJ, for people going to the game next week, IU versus Kennesaw State. It's at noon, again on Fox Sports 1. It'll be at Merchants Bank Field at Memorial Stadium. Solid crowd. Was disappointed that Purdue outdrew IU coming off a college football playoff appearance, and Purdue coming off a 1-win season. But it is what it is. Perfect weather, 68 degrees, light breeze, sweatshirt weather. Let's look at the offense, what IU needs to do against Kennesaw State to make you feel better. And I think we touched upon it, is you got to be more successful in the red zone. And IU was 4 for 7 on the red zone. If you want to count Lee Beebe's fumble as a red zone, it wasn't a red zone attempt because he ran it from 29, but they recovered the ball at the 20. So you're right, borderline there. So you're 4 for 8. And then the last drive of the game, they knelt it inside the red zone too. So, you could either take those two in or take it into account, but let's call it 6 actual red zone attempts, 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and a heck of a lot left to be desired. Last year, IU was elite in red zone conversions and turning them into touchdowns. I am one of the philosophy that his play calling, the offensive play calling, was out of stubbornness. That he wanted to prove a point. They're going to run it. They were blitzing 11 guys or 10 guys in the box. And that's just, to me, not smart play calling, but also you should be able to punch it in against Old Dominion from the 1 on whatever 6 attempts that you had. But there was you saw IU play calling the red zone last year with swing passes and passes to the outside. They didn't really throw the ball outside of a couple of times. They weren't terrific throws. You had one that probably should have been a pass interference late in the game that didn't get called. You had one that, if it was a better back shoulder throw, probably gets called for pass interference in the first half. And then one just needs to be a better throw, and you got to give Surratt a chance to catch it. But, to me, it was, they handed the ball off and they got, it's, you don't have 11 blockers to block 11 guys on offense. So you got overwhelmed. To me, that's the key on offense for me, is can you be productive in the red zone? And you might not get in the red. They could have an old ODU day and just run for 40-yard touchdowns all day. But you need to, if they get inside the 10-yard line into that low red zone area, what do you see them do? Are they going to be stubborn in their play calling again and say, hey, we're going to prove we could run it? Or are they going to kind of tip their hand and show some creativeness and put something on tape for Illinois, which is the danger there? What are you looking for on offense at IU?
Yeah, you mentioned the red zone. That's the obvious one, and absolutely correct. That's what we're going to be watching for these next couple weeks to feel better about it. Or it continues to struggle and we feel really bad about it going into a big matchup. The kind of full house backfield they used with the 2 tight ends and then a running back behind Mendoza. Interesting concept. It didn't prove to be effective, but there's other things you can do out of that beyond just handing the ball off. So we'll see if that gets continued to be used and modified. The other thing I'm going to be watching for, I think, is the just effectiveness and efficiency of the passing game. And again, Mendoza's numbers very comparable to Curtis Rourke's from week 1. So again, nothing to freak out about, but you would hope for more efficiency for the passing game. 18 for 31, 193. Now, if his numbers are 19 for 31 and
250.
That would have been about a 50-yarder, so like 240.
Between 240, 250. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, with a touchdown to Cooper. Well, that looks different, doesn't it? But we know what we watched. It was erratic. I felt like quite a few of Mendoza's passes kind of lacked touch. A lot of kind of bullets being thrown and not a whole lot of touch on some of those. But nothing to panic about. But I do want to see in week 2 what adjustments get made and how it looks in week 2 versus week 1. There was not very much targeting of Elijah Surratt. So
he had 0 targets in the first half. Now
Right.
they did come out at halftime and throw him the ball right away and things like that. So I don't think it was probably in the game plan to get other people involved. But there are also plays where Omar Cooper was open downfield or Surratt was open downfield for big plays that Mendoza didn't take that shot. And I think it's worth noting to remember, IU put up 31 points against FIU and then came back. Now, Western Illinois is a different animal than Kennesaw State a little bit. They did put up 77 points and had those explosive plays. I mean, you go back, Anderson Kobe dropped a touchdown against FIU that was very similar to Omar Cooper. Right. So we'll see. To me, the outside of the red zone, the big concern is the crispness. You had the fumble by Lee Beebe. Now, I did bounce back and run the ball hard. You had the drop. I mean, IU didn't drop a pass last year until like week 5 or something. So it's definitely different in terms of crispness. I think they need to refocus on that as well. But offensive line, I thought played pretty well. Protected Mendoza. He needs to trust his offensive line a little bit more. Settle down. Maybe it's first game jitters and things like that. Settle down. Find your open receivers. Go through your reads, and that's what Curtis Rourke was very good about. Was he knew that he would go to read 3 if it was open. Okay, read 1, read 2, read 3. Bam, he got the ball there. I don't know if Mendoza was processing that as quickly as Rourke. I don't think anybody can as last year, but I do want to see more crispness, fewer drop balls, don't turn the ball over, and just make plays in the red zone. So that's my take on the offense. I'm not super worried about it. I trust the coaching staff. I think the talent is there, but they just need to be crisper.
And again, in an effort to point out some positives, running game was really good.
Yes, it was excellent, and it was almost what kind of threw my vibes off. And I know we talked about this in the text. Was that IU just slowed everything down, it seemed. They huddled after every play.
That's true.
I mean, and they only ran 44 plays on offense.
Yeah.
And so, that's over 10 yards of play with 500 and whatever yards of offense that they had. So the offense was efficient until you got into the 5-yard line and below. But they took their time, which seemed very un-Cignetti-like in his fast, physical, relentless. It just didn't seem to have that, standard to it. But we'll see what happens against Kennesaw State. I think, post-game, Cignetti was oddly happy Or maybe it's just the coach saying, hey, look, we need to go into this humble and hungry, and we just kind of got humbled without taking the L. And, I to me, that's the coach's dream, right? You win, and he didn't play well enough, so now it's time to earn your paycheck. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball, TJ. We also talked about this in the open. Defense outside of those 2 run plays played very well. You had a few uncharacteristic penalties on the interception returns, one of which probably wasn't a penalty. But like that, those discipline things just didn't happen last year. I thought the defensive line played okay. My biggest concern was, where was Mikael Kamara? He was a ghost. He made 1 tackle. I know Don mentioned him once during the game, but Kennesaw State effectively, maybe it's the position change, but they effectively removed him from the game. But I do think, Hosea Wheeler outside of the first play played pretty well. Tyreek Tucker played pretty well inside. They did get a push, not as much of a push as you would like. I thought Kellen Wyatt, again, had ups and downs. He made a big play on that interception by Pons. I believe he tipped it, or at least made it almost impossible to get it over him without throwing the interception. Linebackers played all right. And then the secondary, we came into the season thinking it was going to be the strongest unit. It was 3 interceptions, Farrell, Moore, and Pons. What's your defensive takeaway?
Secondary absolutely stood out. What you're looking for coming into this second game, I think, would be one, as we mentioned, just stay locked in, and that, whether it's eye discipline on those zone reads, which Kennesaw State they're gonna try to take advantage of that. So whether it's eye discipline on that or gap discipline, whatever the case is, I just trust this coaching staff to get that cleaned up. And then what I'd like to see from the defense beyond that is a little bit more disruption in the opposing backfield.
Yep.
Only 1 sack, and that came from Isaiah Jones, and was only a loss of 3. I think you're what we have, like 3
tackles
for loss.
Yeah, 3 tackles for loss.
Yeah, so you're looking for more there, not Lewis Moore, but more tackles for loss, and then the secondary just to continue their stellar play. This is a passing attack, Kennesaw State, that Indiana's secondary has a big advantage there. They don't really have a lot of receivers that cause you concern, and they don't have a quarterback that you feel particularly threatened about to consistently beat you through the air. So it's a big edge in the secondary to IU, and I would hope to see the defense prevent those big runs, but also cause some more disruption in the opposing backfield, and create some more negative plays beyond just those takeaways.
Yeah, I also think this should be a build your depth on defense game. You need to expand the rotation, especially at safety with injuries, and may or may not have Lou Moore in the future. Get some of these young guys in. Hopefully Byron Baldwin is back. He's listed as day-to-day. Yes. Get him in and make some plays. Yep. Get a lot of snaps there. You can move guys like Amarian Knighton around if you need to, play him, just get his eyes used to moving back to safety and playing more of a zone role like he did at NIU. But yeah, this is a game on defense. You want to see them dominate and get those tackles for loss, and depending on how many opportunities, if they're not passing much, you're not going to have an opportunity for sacks. So you're not going to have like a double-digit TFL number. But if they're throwing the ball 25 to 30 times, yeah, you should probably get, between 8 and 10 tackles for loss and pump those numbers up. But yeah, for the defense, not tackling through fall camp, now you have that under your belt. You should look crisper there. I think they did an okay job of tackling. There weren't many broken tackles. I mean, they didn't miss a tackle against Colton Joseph. He just ran right by him, and they didn't even have an attempt.
Right.
So it wasn't because of poor tackling. It was because of poor reads. All right, let's move on to IU will raise the victory flag if. We'll let you go first, TJ.
If they play with focus. I mean, if IU is focused in this game, they will win. It will be a matter of how much and not if. You have to come with the right mindset, though, right? This game and the Indiana State game are both about building your team for the remainder of the season. That's what these next 2 weeks are about. Building your depth, preparing your mindset, building your confidence, perfecting your execution, cleaning out the issues that showed up in week 1, and getting yourself ready for the Big Ten slate, which we know starts with the huge one against Illinois in week 4. So that's what this is about, is coming with the right mindset. And if IU does that, they'll win this game.
I agree. I'm going to say if they play up to the standard that Cignetti has set. He said on Monday, hey, we're at the point where winning by 13 isn't good enough, and that's
Right.
That's okay. But here's where it is. Play up to the standard. Don't do the little things that you didn't do against ODU. Could they win while not doing those things? Absolutely. But I think this fan base is so Jekyll and Hyde sometimes and so hot takey that I don't want to say they lost the goodwill built from last year, but there are certain fans who will start to, well, maybe last year was last year and a fluke and all that stuff. But it's to me, it's play up to the standard. If you do that, you should cover I think it's 36.5 point spread,
yes,
and get out of there comfortably.
36. Yeah.
So get out of there comfortably. IU can't have this happen. To me, it's make the same mistakes that you did against ODU. Again,
Exactly.
that is, can you win the game while making those mistakes? Absolutely. But you're just reinforcing the fears of the fan base and turning those yellow flags even to orange or even red flags on, this is 2 games in a row now. Now it's a pattern. The season, we've said it all off season's going to hinge on those 3 games with Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon. What you do against ODU, as long as you win those games, probably doesn't come back to bite you. Now, if you go into that and you take 2 out of 3 of those games, you're in great shape. If you lose, you could go from 3-0 to 0-3 real quick if you don't play well. But if you get out of there at 4-2, 5-1, you have everything to play for as well. So, TJ, IU can't have this happen on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you give the absolute right answer, and I think the other correct answer is injuries.
Yep.
This is a game that, hey, you want to stay healthy in all of them. That's stating the obvious, but there's some areas, particularly, I think, along the offensive line that you don't really want to test your depth there. And in the secondary now at safety, that you don't have room to test the depth any further. So I think getting the job done, getting your work taken care of in the right way, as you say, playing to the standard, and developing your depth while not getting injuries, I think are going to be the keys for Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I agree with that. You could build your depth, but you don't want to build your depth because somebody goes out with an injury.
Right. Yeah, you want to
You
build
want to
it.
do it. You want to do it because you're up 56-0 at the end of
You
the
made
third
the choice.
quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you made the choice.
Yep. Let's move on to the Hoosier Huddle Pick'em leaders. TJ, we are through week one. The pot is $100. Goes to the winner, and week two picks are available to pick. So let's go through the top. This is a mishmash of, you got one and a whole bunch of people in second, and then the bottom of the group. In first place is Vicky Hudson, 7-3 against the spread. That's a 98.4 point percentage on there. She has 70 points coming in first. Second is Brian Tonsoni at 5-5. There are about 5 people at 5-5. TJ, we're right in there as well. And then
What a shocker.
Yep, right at average. Right at average. And then a couple people at 4 and 6, 3 and 7. To finish it out down there. Still in it. You're still in it. And then one person didn't make picks at 0 and 0. But a real good start to the season on there. It should be with 14 members. It should be $140 in the pot. So a lot there. And I thank everybody for joining us, because that means $140 went to the site as well. And that helps us get stuff done and fix some things on the site as well. Let's go to best bets. TJ, what are your best bets for the game on Saturday? IU is according to ESPN Bet Sportsbook, IU is a 36.5 point favorite with the over under. You get better odds on the over at 51.5 points at -105, and the unders at -115. I'll let you go first.
I would take Indiana and the points. It does feel like a game that IU is going to respond to the issues they had in week number 1. I do expect a good performance, and a good performance would mean that they cover. The point total one is somewhat difficult because I don't expect Kennesaw State to contribute much to that total. And if that's the case, and if IU plays at the same tempo they did in week 1, you're going to have a tough time getting that number. But I do expect some explosive plays out of the passing game. I think they want to get some confidence in that passing game. So I'd go towards the over, but I don't feel as confident in that as I do IU with the points. If that hovers around 35.5, 36.5, I would bet that pretty strong.
Yeah, I would take IU to cover. I feel more confident in the over. Just IU had 6 chances inside the 5. Yeah. They left like 29 points on the field, and that's not counting the kneel down at the end of the game and stuff like that. So if you get half of those in that area, you're probably looking at the over. I think Kennesaw State, they're probably held to 10 or under. I'd pick them as 3 or 7, but I do think IU scores over 50 points. On Saturday.
Maybe Indiana takes that, hey, keep guys healthy, and we loved the way we played in the first half. Maybe they have a great first half, and you see third-string guys in the fourth quarter, and Kennesaw State hits a big play or two, and if they can give you 14 and half of that comes right at the end of the game, well, you feel really good about cashing that.
Yep. Let's go predictions, TJ. Predictions for Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Indiana winning this game 45-10. 45-10. I'm sorry, 49-10. 49-10. Excuse me. Meant to have them hitting a field goal, but I don't want to go over 50. So 49-10. So IU covers, and that would get you just over the point total as well. So take the over, but I think IU wins this game, and I would expect a very strong first half.
Yeah, I'm going to go IU 52 and Kennesaw State 7. I don't know if their kicking operation is all that good to go for a field goal. I do think this is a candidate for a shutout game as well. So, it's kind of like Nebraska last year, who couldn't function on special teams, and they just went for it on every fourth down. It probably cost them 12 points or so. Kennesaw State will either need to fix will either kick it to say, hey, this game is out of hand, we need to work on this, or be like, hey, our only shot is to go for it and, take that chance. So I'm going to go 52-7 IU. I do think Cignetti will – I don't want to say he's going to send a message. It's hard to do that against Kennesaw State, but I think you kind of want to put those yellow flags to bed, and doing that by punching the ball in the red zone and putting up, that exciting brand of football that we saw last year will help. So closing thoughts, TJ.
I would also, if you find a player prop on Elijah Surratt receiving yards, I'd go over. He's, I guess, not particularly thrilled. Not that he's a diva that's going to make a big fuss, but I doubt he was too thrilled with his lack of usage and lack of targets in the first week. I would guess that might get mentioned a time or two ahead of week number 2. But closing thought would be that, I think we talked about what Indiana's emphasis and focus needs to be. You said it, playing to the standard, right? It's about preparing yourself to be ready to play Illinois in week 4. That's what this week's game is about. Obviously, your first priority is get to 2-0, stay healthy, and then making sure that you're beginning to sharpen into a team that can take down Illinois in week 4 that has the look of a top 10 team coming to Bloomington. It's one that we've circled for a very long time. It's getting closer, and you got to get yourself prepared for it. And that's what these next 2 games are all about.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it's all about is getting ready for those 2 games. And I think, kind of putting – everybody gets anxious after game 1 and wants to make grand proclamations of, oh, this isn't a playoff team. They're not going to be as good as last year. Look, if this team still wins 9 games, it's the second best season in IU history.
Remarkable. Yeah.
That's both an indictment of what the past has been, and then, just how much more difficult the schedule could be down the road in the next couple of weeks. But for me, it's putting that anxiousness to rest. Okay, first game jitters, you come back, all right, we figured it out in the red zone. We figured out how to stop the big play on defense. And then you have a short week for Indiana State, an extra day to get ready for Illinois. And by then you should know where Lou Moore stands. By then you should know just how prepared, how you feel going into that Illinois game. And then we'll see if IU beats Illinois. You have a lot of things in front of you. If you lose, there's going to be a lot of concerns going into the next 2 on the road before coming home against Michigan State. So it's a big game in the sense of, okay, you got some things to prove it, but in the long term of things, get out of it with the win, look good, play up to that standard, stay healthy, and your bigger tests are going to come down the road. So that does it for the podcast today. Thank you for listening. You can come back to HoosierHuddle.com as well as follow us on X at Hoosier_Huddle. Our summer promo is over, TJ. It is now $30 for the year, or $3 a month. Subscribe. You get access to our power rankings and IU reactionary articles and some other exclusive things, as well as our chat. Our weekly IU football chat will be on Wednesdays at I think 8:30. It's on the forums. I'll update everybody, but it is on YouTube. We'll send out the link in a subscriber only post. Come join us. We'll talk about last week. We'll talk about next week and big picture things. So thanks for listening.